Hey everybody, it's Ryan Smith and you are watching Secret Chord. This is my third interview ever and I'm so excited to have been able to talk to Ryan Olcott of 12 Rods. 12 Rods is one of my all-time favorite bands, period. This band formed in Oxford, Ohio back in 1992. In the mid-90s, they relocated to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now when these guys came to our city, it was like watching aliens from Mars because the way they approached music was so different than anything we had seen before. And as you may know, Minneapolis has a pretty incredible music scene. The impact that they have had here and beyond is still felt to this day. It didn't take long before the rest of the world would notice this band. They were one of the first bands ever to get the coveted 10 out of 10 rating from Pitchfork Media. They were the first American band to sign to V2 Records. They worked with the legendary producer Todd Rundgren, and they made some really incredible records. It seemed like this band had absolutely everything going for it, but something didn't translate and something went wrong along the way. Ryan Olcott is a very intelligent, insightful, interesting person. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to him. I think you're really gonna enjoy this discussion and get a lot out of this. He's gonna talk about how he started playing music, how he thinks about music, and what his creative process is like. But he's also gonna talk about things that didn't work out and what he would have done differently, if anything. Now, for you 12 Rods fans out there, there's some very good news. They have a brand new album coming out July 7th, If We Stayed Alive. This record is incredible. So check it out. And thank you to First Avenue for hosting this interview. All right, my friends, kick back, relax, and enjoy. Ryan, it's really good to see you. It's been a long time. We go back quite a ways and really excited to have this chance to talk to you and share your experiences with everybody watching this, being an innovator and a real phenomenal musician. When you started playing music, what was it that motivated you to do that?
It was the motivation of having a task from a friend to say, hey, here's an opportunity to be in a band. Fill in the gaps and play whatever's left that we can't play. I always, for every song and motive that I have for playing music with 12 Rods, ever had was for the outcome purpose. Not even the experience, but who am I playing for in front of, and that criteria of knowing exactly from the very beginning of a project, and this goes with all of my projects, what my first show is going to be, who am I playing for, what's the purpose, and the band or the project is pretty much designed within that one tangent of, and if they're on, the show's over, and it's like, okay, well, like, the band or whatever, the project is not going to end after that. Pretty much you have to carry that on to, like, the rest of your life. Oop, tomato. And so it's a commitment of extreme discipline that you have to I had to learn how to make a decision about very quickly about what are my parameters? So if this is who I'm playing for at the end, or for this particular project task, we got to establish these parameters. And I guess I kind of figured that was going to be the only thing that was going to make us be productive as a band, was, saying, okay, someone's got to say what the rules are. We can't just be a jam band. I would not going to let my friends and I have this opportunity to play at the show and jam. And that was kind of the first number one rule. And no one wanted to write a song. So I'm like, okay, well, I write a song. No one wants to sing. Okay, no one wants to play guitar and lead the band. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm that guy. And it's like, okay, when's the party? We got 2 weeks. Okay. And you got to write a whole set and everything. That was 12 Rods was conceived pretty much with the idea of being that dynamic of a band, even though the songs were very immature, ill-structured. First time me trying to write anything, period, let alone try to write a set of performable stuff of guitar music, and perform it and sing and play at the same time, and none of which I had any skill in. And so pretty much from that point on, that is the process. That's the motivation and reason of the structure of the process of the band. The prod is pretty much that first show that I'm scheduled to play. And that determines nearly everything about what the band is going to be for the rest of its life. And
that's incredible. So
does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're saying like you have a goal or a deadline
job.
or
a
job,
a deadline, but it's always
and you're being creative with the time that you have and the parameters that you set.
realistic ones, and to make that happen at a pretty uncomfortable amount of time. And pretty much it's how it's always been with every first show that I've ever had with any of my groups, is you have a really uncomfortable amount of time of less than 6 weeks to pretty much make a set of music and define everything there is about that band with a confidence and just a conviction that's believable to say this is exactly what it's meant to be.
Wow.
So there's no time to like experiment. There's no real even time to kind of like cultivate a sound. You have to make a choice with what you have at the moment and what's right around the corner. And that's it. And you have to make choices that are just really random and you don't expect. But I have this drum machine here and I really like this 4-track. Well, I guess I'm going to make the whole record just like that. I guess that's going to define the next group for the next 10 years.
That's incredible.
And you can't think about it, but you kind of let that freedom of not taking it too seriously to really pull some really strange things. Because once you do it a few times, you realize that you can make music out of anything. So you can your choices become more vast and you can just have fun with it. But it's just the first few times with 12 Rods, it was like really establishing a lot of rules about things that were not just aesthetics and styles, but I had to tell my band how to play certain chords, and it wasn't always fun to kind of teach them or tell them how to play your A minor 7s and your G flat 9s, and it's just but at times it had to get there in order to and we had to all agree to that, and someone had to be cheesy and cross that line because you know what, we have fucking 4 weeks to get a band done, and I'm sorry, this is the only way we're all going to understand it in literal terms of and be and get anything done. So it's one of those very challenging states for me and for anyone I'm playing with to you have a very uncomfortable amount of time, and that's the point where all the magic happens. It has to happen. It can happen that quick, and it's always where it happens. And you got to trust that too, because there's emergency to it. Everything about it, and that's where that's real X factors start coming down. The cool ones. Anyway.
That makes a lot of sense, and it seems like the limit of time is a deliberate part of your process.
Yes,
and
I wouldn't choose that on purpose, but I let that happen because it always pulls the best out of me.
Okay,
Just let that happen. So.
And the parameters that you guys set, I think that's something I always admired about your bands, is that you did seem to create your own universe of what you are as an identity, and then you stuck to it. And you got really creative within those parameters, but it's really easy to just say, well, we could do a polka song, and then we could do a heavy metal song, but you really you created your own world of your musical identity.
And I think, thank you. I think I tried to do the best I can to realize all the musicians I ever played with and write for them, like all the early 12 Rod stuff. Say I wrote the parts. I would still write them knowing that Christopher or Matt were going to play this, and they play like this, and they play like this the best, and in their best capacity, and in their most glory moments of what they're best at. I know how that is. I see them, and I witness what they're best at doing, and I write in those comfortable zones for them, so it just feels natural for them to play it. And so you got to appreciate the best attributes of the musicians, no matter what level they are. They always have some weird thing that they do. And, and if you can identify that as a writer, you always want to write with that because they'll love playing it.
Yeah.
And you can be creative with that. They'll appreciate it. They'll never know that they didn't even write the song,
Yeah.
They'll think that they wrote the song, in fact, and then they'll start bitching about getting the royalties, and then break up. Just kidding. Sorry, that was a little harsh, but it does kind of backfire sometimes
Yeah.
because they do kind of,
Right.
wonder that sometimes I did write half the song.
That
like,
that is
kind of it turned into this little. I don't want to come off as being psychologically manipulative, but there was a way to kind of, and sometimes you make it so comfortable for them to play something that should be pretty hard that they think that they kind of wrote it. They had more a part to do with the writing process.
Okay.
And there was that fine line of like, sometimes they do forget. Sometimes I kind of forget who wrote that exact part. I probably did, but it sounds like them, and that's what they do so naturally that we all kind of like, well, he wrote it, of course, and the world would agree. But it's just one of those things where I have to, let go of because royalties aren't everything, and all my cuts and shares really don't mean shit. I don't mind distributing them and being fair with them anyway. But it's just I've had those issues where band members would try to take ownership of songs that they didn't write because they just forgot they didn't write the song.
Yeah, that's a really.
I mean, you might have dealt with that too, but it's as a writer,
it's a delicate issue, right? It's a very delicate issue, and there's every band has its own dynamic and how some bands like one person writes everything, but they all just split royalties, or they decide this person is the singer songwriter and they get the majority of the royalties.
There was a big. Right. And I initially, I took the side of I wanted to split everything evenly, but I had a manager that was not. He's like, Ryan, this is rightfully your money.
Yeah.
You don't have to give them anything, and it was kind of taking that, like making me trying to actually kind of separate.
Yeah.
Oh, that bullshit. I kind of added a little. It made everyone kind of uncomfortable when we have a manager trying to just push it all on me, but there was always conflicts like that.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so your dad was a music professor in Oxford, Ohio, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did that affect your musical development or your how you perceive music?
100%. I mean, I don't know where to start other than I woke up every morning, especially on weekends, at about 8 or 8:30 to my dad practicing the trumpet, or going to bed with my dad rehearsing, or my mom rehearsing her piano parts. I mean, I was always coming into conscious and going to sleep with music, not just records, or not at all records. It was always live music.
Wow.
Always a trumpet or a piano or a saxophone or other instruments. Usually those three, and it's always scales and etudes. And yes, I mean, it's had profound effect on the development of like how I hear our melodies or etc. Yeah, and also my dad also was a jazz guy, which forced me to learn how to swing at a very young age, and would not let me play a complete drum set until I learned how to swing on just a ride cymbal and a hi-hat. He had me over and over at a young age, and he took that sort of approach on me, where it's like very militant.
Yeah.
You don't deserve drum set until you can swing. Sort of, and it's weird to think, but it was pretty badass too. I've never, to this day, it's something that still is very, and has always only gotten more important to me. And the whole feeling of pocket and rhythm and fluid and time and all that. It's just, it stems from, luckily, a straight lineage from my toddlerhood.
Yeah. What did and do your parents think of your music? Is that's
also like a strange area of they grew up hating rock and roll. They were legit concert musicians, and they thought there's more rock and roll. They got was like the Carpenters. They liked the Carpenters, but that was as rock as they would ever get. And my dad was very much close to the Haight-Ashbury scene. My dad lived in Haight-Ashbury in '69.
Wow.
But he wasn't a hippie.
Okay.
He was like a beatnik, and he played the trumpet.
Sure.
So he hated hippies, and he hated jam music, and he hated psychedelics, and he hated, so whatever those references are made in music, which, I like psychedelic music. I like, experimental music.
Yeah.
Whenever something's a reference, my dad always has to make some nasty remark about how much he hates hippies.
Wow.
And that, as much as funny as it is, it definitely has, it made me work harder as a rock musician to play better. Because, of course, as much as I hated him for saying that, not hate him, but just hate what he says over some of the things that are just kind of like derogatory over pop cultures at times. He's, I still want to win his appreciation and his approval because he is a great musician and he's, a very, high level academic musician who knows a lot about music and who's taught me incredible amounts of things that I carry to this day. And it's all very, theory and it's, academics that, believe it or not, I only use as like a tool to the stuff that I do today, but I don't like flaunt any of that. I'm not like going around trying to tell we're reading manuscript. It's just dissecting stuff, to like learn how to write songs. Because how did that great song that you love sound so great? And it's just like, well, figure it out. You just do the math and just chop it up and what's going on here. And, theory, taught me that too. But that's huge. So it's, am I answering your question?
Yeah. Oh, and actually, you pre-answered my next question. Okay. I was going to ask how music theory, how important that is in your creative process, and I think
it isn't. I mean, it's like
right.
It's like you.
Right.
I never write based off theory, but I know and have to learn and have to teach and communicate to other musicians my music based off theories.
Right.
And it's sometimes the fastest way, instead of rote, to translate music into someone else's world. Sometimes you have to write in bass clef. Sometimes you have to write tab, or sometimes you have to write rhythms out just to make things easier.
Right.
And do that when you have to, but it's not like it doesn't define anything about the aesthetic of what I'm doing. And it's whatever. It's not like it's something I'm trying to hide or anything at all. It's not like I don't think it's uncool or anything like that. But it's, of course, there's a lot of rock and mentalities out there that are like, yeah, we don't know anything about music. And we just listen and we just play what we want. It's like, whatever, it's cool too. That's just fine. I love it. And, there's an internal struggle over those two extreme worlds, 'cause I hate music just as much as I love music. I hate everything about the academics, the learning process of it as much as I love it. It's a very polar situation for me because I was very much into punk rock. At the same time, I was very much into, my concert music and my four mallet, instrumentation, and mallet vibes and soloist music and competitions and band camps and all those things. I was all about that. But also, I just skate and listen to JFA, that latter half of the day. And it's just, but I didn't realize that it was even this. There were music, and they were both deliberately musics, but there were two very separate worlds. That 12 Rods helped me bring that together in a way that was maybe rather clunky at times, but I had to find some peace with both those worlds and how to make them both work.
Yeah.
Because I knew enough to know how to do a lot of things, but I also had to know enough to know when not to do a lot of things. So it's like, you got to weigh all that out.
Yeah.
So, is that
it completely does. And I think some musicians seem to, like when you were talking about in the punk rock world or just in rock and roll in general, some musicians almost fear knowing the theory because they feel it's going to interfere with their connection with the music.
Exactly. And yes, and it can. But no, it's a really ignorant way of taking it on.
Right.
I mean, theory is great. I mean, you really should know as much about music as you're willing to learn. And it's all only... just because you know the theory doesn't mean you have to play your major sevens, all the time. It's just an understanding of counterpoint. It's understanding of the math of music and you might as well learn it if you have musics that you really genuinely like and are moved by, and you want to make that yourself and understand why that works, because there is formula to it all. You don't have to swear by the formulas, but there are tricks and there are things and little secret ammunition things that turn around and think that is technically just math, just appropriated in the way that's artfully cool, and you can pull off all sorts of kind of academic stuff within your music. But if you know how to put it in the right place, it's just going to be a part of the song. You just got to know when not to do that stuff. And it's luckily that's part of the school of where I am. It's like, how do you equally respect and learn and from both those worlds, and it's great. It's just I guess I have my own style of doing that, with whatever, and it's it makes it fun and challenging, but it also allows me to understand a large spectrum of musics, how to make and feel and emote them. That all just forever grateful to have that ability to do. And it's luckily just sometimes you just gotta have that hard, polarizing life style to really see that. But anyway, so it's kind of a curse, kind of a blessing to have that sort of background. It was, all your punk rock friends, at the time, were kind of like, hey, I saw you in marching band. You look pretty stupid. It's like, yeah, whatever. Hey, whatever. It's just what it is.
Yeah. But it gives you so much more capability in your analysis of music that you like, that inspires you. You're able to see what it is about it.
Yeah, I can take that
with
my punk songs, all the songs that were essentially pretty simple songs, but my theory allowed me to figure out how that's done. In ways that maybe I'm not going to steal, but at least I understand what's going on, like how the movements work and why they work. Why guitars want to go do 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 a lot. Just those sort of chromaticisms and why things go down like that. It's there's a formula and there's emotional answers to that can be actually just spelled out right in front of your eyes. Whether or not punk rockers want to learn that, they probably don't agree with that sort of style. But if you want to be educated, you might as well dig deep within that and never know what you'll find. And in fact, I think be kind of mind blown and enlightened by those things that you might have taken for granted.
Right.
But I'm not saying everyone's got to go to college and learn their skills or anything, but maybe you do. Yeah, maybe you should learn an etude or two. Go out and learn some piano or something. I'm just saying, it's whatever. With that.
Well, I'm curious, what was it about Minneapolis? So you coming from the background that you've had in music, moving to Minneapolis, which is known as pretty much at that time punk rock, and of course the R&B scene. There was like a new hip hop scene that was becoming quite popular. But what drew you to Minneapolis? Why did you choose that city to move?
It was a city to move to that was, first off, away from my hometown. And I think I always loved the name Minneapolis. I always thought Minneapolis was just very flamboyantly cool. Minneapolis. It's rolled off the tongue nice. It sounded like a city made of crystals and glass. And it had a legendary music scene that my brother and I acknowledge on both sides of the fence, of course. And it was, I think Ev got his first, I guess, job and here being in those scenes. He when he graduated from college, he worked for the Jets here for a while. He also worked for Flight Time Studios.
The Jets is in the band.
The Jets.
Wow.
They were
I had no idea about that.
They, in the mid '90s, they of course have this mansion together. They still all live together. The family, all 23 family members. It's a huge family. But they have a huge studio, and I guess Ev was one of their main engineers for a couple of years there. Ev was a pretty one of those engineers that was kind of like a prodigy engineer, a young guy who could do things really quick and could figure out and fix your studio up, and he helped Jets get their studio back together and started recording some new demos with them. I don't know why he stopped working with them, but at the time it was at the time when I think we just moved to town. Christopher and I just moved to town '94, and at the same time we're trying to get this rods together. I was having to go to the Jets, and it was kind of fun. We all knew that. We all loved the Jets. I mean, got a crush on me.
You can't not love the Jets.
No, it's just good stuff. They're genius. Anyway, it's those sorts of strange sort of I don't know, just facts kind of swirl around us, at times. If you just, and we forget about it, but if you're just talking about that alone, you just remember that, Ev used to work for the Jets.
Yeah.
No one knew that. It's a little funny piece of Minneapolis history.
Yeah, that's kind of blowing my mind, because maybe I did know that, but it wasn't
during their after their peak, probably popularity. They were still active, and they might have had some hits, but they might have been doing stuff in Europe, but for the most part, it wasn't. It was grunge time. Yeah. So not right.
It wouldn't have been their heyday, but so you guys self-recorded your first EP. Well, I don't know if it was your first EP. The first EP that the public really took notice of was Gay, and you said '96. You guys self-produced that and recorded it on your own. So That's another interesting part. So Ev having a role with the Jets and being a super talented engineer, and you guys self-recording that. I think that was one of the things that really captured people's interest about it, was the way that it was produced, and that probably wouldn't have come across that way if you guys went. I am assuming, like, I don't know, like if you guys had gone into a studio and just recorded, it might not have been the same album.
Very interesting mixture of influences at the time and background, because at the time Ev was fresh out of college. He was pretty much graduating from Peabody, the engineering program, and he basically left thinking that what he learned is going to be completely irrelevant, and just based off the time, digital technology and the whole music movements that were going around. I was playing him records by like Medicine and My Bloody Valentine at the time. He's just like, none of this makes any sense, and all the stuff I've learned, everything that I learned could be wrong. It's like he has that very humble realization that his own knowledge base is not fulfilled.
Right.
And so we were trying to make music that sounded like Medicine at the same time. We still liked R&B, and we were still like Prince, and we're just trying to like, not trying to like mix it together, but we had these, just obvious influences that we can't. So being a rock band and having a keyboardist on stage and playing stuff that has pockets or something like that was I guess a thing that the rock scene, I guess, was, I wouldn't want to say uncomfortable with, but Steve McClellan sure as hell wasn't happy with us when we had a keyboard. That was the first thing he said he didn't like the first time we played here. He made it very clear to us that he did not like the fact that we had a keyboardist on stage.
Really?
We love you, Steve, but just saying that's what he said.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know. Yeah.
It was one of those, we knew we were going to get that sort of resistance, and we knew it was uncool, but that was every reason to do it.
See, that's one of the things I thought that like did change in the music scene here, was the fact that people were shortly thereafter, there were way more keyboards on stage. There were way more people experimenting with loops and sampling. I mean, if you think about like Melodious Owl came after you guys, and you were around that same time as like Polera and Ed Ackerson's band. You guys were kind of neck and neck, I think, at that time, doing some of the same types of things.
We were both kind of doing the washy guitar, kind of European Anglo influenced, Brit pop, shoegazy territories, of course. Yeah. Rest in peace, Ed.
Yeah. So but that was, I think, one of the things that really did change about the scene. You could see, because before you guys came here, it was the, and I love this, the slacker guitar, just don't do anything too fancy. If you're too, if you don't step out of line.
Exactly.
And you guys were not only stepped out of line, but you did it with style, and you're like, we're going to do this different.
Right.
And
that was hard to. We knew we were doing that, but we also knew that we had to be very careful with it. It was I know, but there was some backlash. I'm not gonna lie. There was people that didn't fully get the amount of the harmonic structure that had to be there, or certain compositional. There was just a lot of stuff going on. We knew it rubbed people the wrong way who were devoted to a certain scene style aesthetic in this town, but that was our way of saying, we're not fully from this town. We're from Cincinnati too, and Dayton, Ohio, which has their own musical R&B scene. With you got Zapp and Roger, you got Parliament, you got George Clinton, you got Ohio players, you got Midnight Star. I mean, that's where I come from. I mean, we grew up around R&B too, but it was a different flavor of R&B, and we also had to bring that in with this flavor of R&B if we were to even tread R&B.
Yeah.
And when we did tread those, it was like a lot to take on. I think our audience was, mostly of an indie audience, weren't fully embracing dance music yet. And I think there was a time in the '90s where, there was guitar music, and if you played a dance beat, it just wasn't good. You had to play everything but a dance beat.
Yeah.
Tribal or different tempos. But as soon as that element comes in, it's like, people get. It was a division, and trust me, there was. And it was left. Come like '98, but there was a good few years there where there was very specific, rules to the beats you play and all that stuff. In this town, it exists, whether people want to acknowledge it, but we made people uncomfortable. And it was kind of our way of saying, you know what, this is what we still do. And we're not trying to be anything that is, pretentiously like stage, or this is where we, it's just honestly, if anything, we'll be the first to do it. And we can all agree that it wasn't the right thing to do. Sure. But at least we did it. And just, we can leave it at that. Okay. Sorry guys, but we'll take that one for you guys. Just the poster children of those, we'll do what you should do, and we'll just let you know that for the scene. And so we kind of, we accepted that. It was fun because we were told that too. It's like, you really should. Like, you know what? At least we all know now. And then, if anything, we educated the scene by just knowing what not to do. And, I'd accept that too, especially when it was hell. It's like, you get it. And maybe I didn't have to be so harsh on myself, but I thought by the end of the whole 12 Rods game, come like early 2000s, it was just like I just showed everybody like exactly how not to rock and roll. And maybe and I was probably wrong, but that's how they made us feel. It was kind of like you guys didn't do it the right way.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit, because you guys, from my perspective, watching you guys seem like you're on top of the world and you're doing everything everybody wanted to do. You had a cool, good, from the outside, it appeared to be a really good major label deal, because major label deals can be nightmares and they can be not cool, but you guys had a cool one with V2. You were doing cool tours. You were selling out venues.
Well, you see, the thing is that none of that's correct.
Okay.
That was
that's interesting
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that you were wrong, and I'm not going to say you got all the facts wrong, but rather than, I think people have idealized us in ways now, and especially over the course of time, that have made us way more grandiose than we've been. Like, we've never really sold out, and every time we've toured, it's always sucked bad.
But in town here, though, you guys did great. It seemed like you did great again.
Yeah, okay. I guess we achieved a crowd here that came and went. We'd play a couple of big shows, and all of a sudden there'd be nobody there. It'd be like, really scared. Whoa. Did we just lose our crowd? Was there some shift in the popular opinion of who we are? And we were always paranoid about that stuff, because it was very delicate. Especially when there was all that drama.
Mm-hmm.
Near the end with the X band, et cetera, et cetera. So. And it was riding heavily on a lot of key people doing very specific, stupid high school things just to determine which side of the fence people are going to fall on. It was like really wild and it was just, I don't know, but people perceived it in ways that I didn't consider.
Okay.
I just honestly perceived that we were just the losing. We were the underdog band. We were the band that was set up to have everything, but ended up quite the opposite. So. But only the course of time could let me recover and show the world anything that was good about me. How do I recover from that situation rather than anything then? Because it was not my time. 12 Rods are dead and done for years and years for a while there. But apparently just somehow they remember. I thought it was over. I didn't think that's the longevity of where, how it's kind of come back in this, I don't know, wave or anything, but, we're way more popular than we've been.
Right.
We haven't played in 8 years.
It's kind of like Big Star in a way, where, you guys had your time that you existed as a band. The legacy lives on, and musicians, you're kind of a musician band, I think, where... That's
honestly, I've heard that 1,000 times. Yeah. And I don't know if I agree with it, but I don't know if that's something I should feel proud of being. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I understand like that.
And I'm not sliding your question on
No. Right.
Because, I like to, the peers and my musician friends, I want to make them, impress them too.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I just want to impress the crowd.
Right.
The common person. But I was always told and fed the line from my label and people in the scene, only the musicians and smart people are going to get it. It's like, you're just too good. And it's like, people say that to you. It's just, I hate that. Your band's just too good. I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Is it like that lazy way of saying that you're just too stupid or too lazy to figure us out? Or are you just saying that we're never going, once you're too good,
right,
you can't be ungood again. So if they put you in a position of, you're pigeonholed into you're over.
The good side of being that kind of band, though, is that when musicians are fans of what you do, they start bands, like Big Star. A lot of the people that like the Replacements and REM and even like the Jayhawks, you could say were really influenced by a band that while they existed, they had very limited success. I mean, Big Star sold like 500 copies of a record, in their day, and they were done, and they thought, well, that didn't go very well. Let's try something else. But when the music sticks around and people that were into it, are then moving on to start new bands, and then they're starting new bands, and then the influence starts to snowball. And I think that's, it may not be the ideal thing but it's really amazing too.
Well, I think I'm grateful for that's happening at all. I mean, if anything, on my, if in the greatest possible outcome of it all, I thought there'd be a resurgence or an understanding of us 50 years after I'm dead, and I would never see anything. But it's nice to feel, and be alive for a little wave of. There's two generations away from me of kids who, are almost like gatekeeping certain information online about us. They're just like Reddit threads and things that are just like run by teenagers anymore, and they're just obsessed with certain things about it. And I'm just like, I just can't believe that they're. How did they get it? Who told them? It's just. But it's done that on its own and naturally, and I think that's only the best way it could have ever happened. And and we'll see where that goes. But because of that, I had to, maybe rise up to the occasion of possibly doing what I just did and record this record. And figured like it'd be a good time to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Well, you said that when it was all said and done, that you felt like you showed the scene here how to do it or how not to do it.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like you took away from that experience, and how did it affect like everything you've done since? Like what do you feel went wrong? What do you feel was?
You've known me. I mean, there was 20 years there. I mean, I had abandoned guitar music. I had to reconceive myself as an electronic musician through Food Team, Mystery Palace, C. Castro, Pitch Records. I ran the Kitty Cat Club for 17 years, and I did do very different tasks within the same scene, if you will, of work. Producing for other bands, having a studio, doing more behind the scenes stuff, but there's that whole other level of that was pretty much my real boot camp. I probably should have had way before 12 Rods if I were to properly execute and make that machine happen. It's one of those things where I learned things that I should have learned later on, but I got a little too much of that little success too early. When you're that young, and it's the end of a wave anyway, and it was just a lot of strange situations and circumstances that caused it to fail, but it was one of them that, it was so profound that, I had to really say, what, I'm not moving. Everyone else has left town because they're too ashamed or whatever, but, I had to humbly, be sound guys for punk bands and pretty much forget about 12 Rods and start circuit bending because it was the most, it was the antithesis of everything I was doing before. And that was that's a whole other story. So there was that. But then there's 20 years go by and all of a sudden people like 12 Rods again. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I have this extra material. Yeah, I might as well record it. And someone just asked if I had any new 12 Rods. Like, I'd buy them. I do. And it's old stuff, but I just recorded it this year. And they're like, give it to me. And all of a sudden they are a bigger label than they thought they'd be and are putting all sorts of effort into making sure that things happen for us. And I have more support now than I've ever had with V2. Hands down. Unbelievable. Financially, morally, just opportunistically, we have a lot of things that we are going to do now that make way more sense, strangely now, than they did then when they should have made sense. So it's a really backwards world. And my life's just a strange, ironic servitude of I don't know how people perceive me, but it's like you said, you had people have this idea. I'm a person who has idealism written all over me. People have stories about me that never existed. It's weird to hear people who I've never met before recite their version of myself to me at times. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow. And and that's me to them, and you can't denounce that though. You got to kind of write that into your story.
Right.
As well. So and I'm learning really strange things all the time about how people think I've done. People think I live in France. People think I live in New York and I'm a made man. And it's just could be farther from the truth. It's just, it's wild stuff. So it's at least I can fake it a little easier these days. You go, yeah, maybe I am famous. I'll just go back to working my day job, and at least people think I'm famous. I'm not, but it's like that weird sort of situation I'm in. But I don't know. Like I said, life's weird. Here we are.
Well, this new record, I know personally a lot of people that are just psyched that you're putting it out. And I've had the opportunity to hear some of the cuts from it. It's so good. And one of the things that's cool about it is it sounds like, I hate to use this term, classic 12 Rods. It does. But then it has this element where the songs are so just strong as songs, where they could be songs that are hit songs on the radio, but in a good way, not in the lame, like it doesn't sound like it's trying to do that. It just sounds like what maybe like 12 Rods like could have, like, if it had happened, with.
Well, the record's called, I guess I'm gonna say it. It's called "If We Stayed Alive," so it's kind of based off that theory of like this is what we would have sounded like if we still remained a band after Lost Time. This is what we were gonna do. And hopefully at our best, we would have sounded like this. And I had to record like that. I had to try and forget all the stuff I had learned through Mystery Palace and all that stuff and throw it away and go, hey, I'm going to try sounding like a regular rock band. And it was really easy, actually.
Yeah.
It wasn't so awkward. So it was, anyway.
So these songs you wrote after Lost Time?
Well, they were probably written around that time. Some of the songs are actually written before some of those songs. And a song or two are actually written probably around like personality, even the gay. Like there between 97 and like 2001, maybe these songs were written, I suppose, and were to be the follow-up to Lost Time. And all I have is demos of them, and I just figured they had enough clout to them to they deserve a full version, or a version that I didn't have a band, so I just pretended to be 12 Rods.
So did you play all the instruments on those recordings? And from what I understand, is a new lineup.
It's a work in progress. The record was just me engineered, but we were going to have a new live band, and it will be a new group. It won't be any original members. Unfortunately, it's just best that way. And I've, in the process of playing with people and figuring out what's going to happen. It's kind of difficult and a lot of fun. It's actually bringing me back into the scene. I have to go back out and figure out the scene. I've been kind of, since COVID, away from being inside the scene because of kitty cat issues. And so I've had to not be out. I don't really see bands anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know really who's playing. And so I need to find some band members.
Right. So you're finding new band members. Yeah, that's right. The new record, is there a plan to release it yet? Or?
Yes, it's actually going to be released by 2 different labels that are joint efforts working together, and it's amazing to have that strength of 2 labels, strong independent labels, codependently working with one another to make a record. So it's all these checks and balances they have to go through to make it not work is really strong. So, they can't just do it their own way. They're going to make sure that 2 companies are doing it right way together. And it's like an incredible amount of assurance that it's the strongest situation it can be in.
Yeah.
And it's, I have, and actually coming up, I think April 11th, we will have a release announcement.
Really? Okay. The date will be released.
It'll be exactly. Just a press
announced.
Okay. Announced and some information probably about the band. Hopefully, if I can
lock it in. Yeah.
By then, but stuff like that's coming up pretty quick. I think even I don't know if it'll be out after the fact, but Friday, Bandcamp Friday. That's tomorrow.
Yeah,
Friday,
Bandcamp. Yeah, Friday is.
We're gonna reissue
this week.
Yeah, we're gonna reissue this Lost Time on CD. We're gonna have a bunch of copies of that are gonna have a couple of bonus tracks. That'll be available hopefully I think by Friday. Just to have it out there between now and probably I don't know the record comes out. But we'll also be pretty active the next few months releasing singles. I think from the record, which will be out in July. I think. So.
Are you guys gonna be touring at all?
Yes, in some capacity, and but we have a booking agent which is a lot of pressure. I didn't have a band for a while, and they were like, "Oh, we got a booking agent for it." I'm like, "We're gonna get a band together."
Yeah.
So, yes, they want me to tour. I don't know how much that requires anymore because in the whole new world of social media, you can't just like make a TikTok and like not tour.
You can do that.
So we're banking on that.
Yeah, right. Okay, so a lot of social media, some
Yeah.
touring.
Yeah. Banking on viral videos, so we don't have to tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll tour.
Good. Well, I personally cannot wait to see you guys play again, and you with the new lineup and new record is amazing. If you could tell your 16-year-old self something, what would it be now, looking back?
I'm doing the right thing. Yeah. I think what I've learned is indispensable. It's so perfect. Everything is so perfect about it. You know, it's comical. You know, it couldn't have been written better. I've learned so much from it, and it's so perfectly strategically placed.
Yeah.
And it knows when to get me at that most perfect moment that I can't deny its intelligence and its message. So stay on the path, Olcott, if you can see me. Just keep doing it. Nothing I can say that'll make any difference.
Yeah. It's like watching a movie unfold. You know, it's cool.
It's going to happen. Yeah. And it'll happen for a reason. You know, and it will. Whether it's crappy or great, it's for the exact reason. And it's always going to seem wrong, but it's actually perfect. And you'll find out way later. Uncomfortably later. And if you're lucky.
Likewise, is there anything you would pass on to the next generation of musicians out there that are just starting to play, starting a band, starting to create music?
Don't spend more than $200 on a guitar.
That's very smart.
That's
I
it.
love it. I love it. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for doing this. This was a blast.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned. 12 Rods, new record coming out, tour dates, the whole shebang. So, all right. Cheers, everybody.